Hi, my name is Jenny. This is my channel, Designs with Paper. I am so glad you stopped by today. One of the things I have found that I struggle with in all color mediums is coloring something black without losing the dimension or the shape of the object. What I have learned is that you don't actually grab that 100 or that 110 Copic marker. You color in shades of gray. And because we're human, our eyes will look at that tire colored in shades of gray and it will read black, especially when the image around it is completely colored. So I have picked one stamp set today. It's a Gerda Steiner design stamp and 3 different coloring mediums. I have Copic markers, Prismacolor pencils, and Zig real brush color pens. I can't remember how to say the name. It's the Zig markers that everybody's raving about. And I am going to color black. So come along and let me know. Tell me something that you learned that you didn't know before. Thanks for stopping by.
Okay, so this is the Gerda Steiner Designs stamp set. It's lovely pandas, and they're so stinking cute. So I have stamped this little guy on some Bristol paper, and these other two on Nina Solar White 80-pound probably. I chose the Bristol paper because that is the best paper for coloring with the Zig, real brush, clean color markers. I don't know. Okay, so we're starting with this guy in the Zig Pens, and I'm adding a little bit of pink to his ears just because I'm going to then gray it back out. But you need to have a little bit of pink in there, right? Okay, I have 12 Zig Pens. I have a dark gray and a light gray. That's what I have. So I am going to start with the dark gray. I am going to blend it out with the light gray, and then I'm going to blend it even farther with a colorless blender. This is a pen that has only solution, no pigment. The trick with coloring black with these Zig pens is, I don't know, go talk to Nichole Spohr. She does so many better things with these Zig pens. Just kidding. The trick to coloring black with these Zig pens is blending. It's all about the blending. You start with a darker pen, you blend it out with a lighter pen, and then if you still need to blend it, you blend it out with the colorless blender. But for real, if you want to see some fantastic Zig color pens, go check out Nichole Spohr. She does some amazing things with these Zig pens. I am not very good. I'm getting better. I'm practicing. But anyway, I am sorry if me flipping the paper around is making you a little bit seasick. This is just how I color. And this is sped up, I don't know, 4 or 8 times normal speed so that I don't bore you to tears because I color slow. And if I'm going to use 3 mediums, you don't want me to color slow. Okay, anyway, so the bottom of his little paws, I colored the darkest, and then I blended out that dark gray with the light gray, and then I blended out the light gray with the colorless blender. I tend to color toward the image instead of toward the edge, and that's just because if you go out of the lines, it's really hard to correct, and it takes me a long time to color, and if I'm going to color something, I don't want to have to throw it away and start over, or be annoyed by imperfections in it. Even though I know I am making handmade cards, homemade cards, they're not perfect, they're not Hallmark. That's why they're awesome, because they're not perfect. But anyway, I digress. So his little eye patches, same thing. I put the darkest color down there toward the outside. I don't know what side that is, depends which way you're looking at it. The side by the paws, and then blended it out because there would be a shadow on that little eye patch from where his paw is. For his nose, I didn't do too much blending. I just colored it in with the dark gray. And then when I go to use this little guy on a card, I will add the highlight in with a little bit of a white gel pen. And I might even add a little bit of gel pen to the top of his paw right in front of the eye patch just because to make sure, a differentiation. Sorry, my boys are in the bedroom above my office and they're trying to go to bed, which means they're jumping from one bed to the other, pretending that we can't hear them. And then the dog is outside the office door whining because she's supposed to be on crate rest because she had surgery on her knee and she's mad that we don't let her go anywhere. So, you know, my house is a cacophony of noise, so I hope you don't hear any of that. Anyway, back to the panda bear. I have taken that light gray and colored in the shadows with the light gray, and then I will just pull those shadows out with the blender pen to color white. But don't worry, I have a whole other video on how to color things white. Okay, moving on. This little bear I will be coloring with Prismacolor pencils, and I chose the French grays. I chose the French gray because it's a little bit darker than the warm gray, and I don't really use cool grays for living things. I save the cool grays and the toner grays for machinery, metallics, non-living items. I use my warmer grays or my neutral grays for animals and living things, hair, stuff like that. Although to get a really nice black hair, you do have to use, with Copic Markers, you do have to use the cool grays. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. I'm not great at hair either, so I will not be having that video. Anyways, I started with the darkest gray pencil there was, and I put it on the outside and blended it in with lighter grays. I used the 90% French gray and then the 70% French gray, and I think I went down to the 50%, and then I blended them together with a colorless blender pencil. Now, I must have temporarily gone insane and forgotten what pandas look like because I end up coloring his arm kind of stupid. I hope I fixed it before I put it on a card because it was going to look dang near weird. However, same process for the arms. This arm holding the balloon has quite a bit of shadow on it from his face and his belly. So that little nook really has to be colored in with that darkest gray and then blended out with the lighter grays. A couple of tricks for colored pencils that I've picked up over time is to make sure that your tip is really sharp. I edited out a lot of footage where I had flipped around behind me in my chair to sharpen my pencils to keep that point really sharp. Another trick with colored pencils is it's all about the layers. You need multiple layers going in more than one direction, you know, up and down, back and forth, you know, horizontal, vertical, to get the pigment down into the paper fibers. And the other trick for coloring with colored pencils is to use many, many, many layers because you are trying to push that, or many layers with light pressure. Because you're trying to get the pigment down into the paper fibers, you need lots and lots of layers. And so you need to not push very hard. And one way that I accomplish that is by holding farther back on my pencil. Now, obviously, I am not in that picture right there when I'm trying to emphasize the shadows, but there you see I've moved my hand back up the pencil. It also helps prevent that finger cramp that you get when you're holding onto a pencil really tight, because when you're holding it farther back the barrel, you can't really hold it very tight. You will notice that where his belly and his feet touch, or his one foot is behind the other foot, I have really added more of the darkest gray to emphasize that shadow. And when you're coloring something black, it's all about the shadow. Black is kind of perception in our eyes. When we're seeing something that has been colored black or dyed black, it's perception. It's all light, you know. And when we see the shadows and the highlights, we will perceive it as black. And you see, I colored that arm dumb. I don't know what I was thinking. If I had been thinking clearly, I would have wrapped that color all the way around his shoulders like a real panda, but whatever. I don't know. Anyways, back to coloring things black. I am all over the map tonight. I did the same thing with his eye patch. I started near the whites of his eyes with the darkest and pulled it out with the lighter colors, and then I blended it with my blender pencil. And that blender pencil does not have pigment in it. It just kind of helps get all that pigment into the paper fibers. To color the rest of his fur, I was going to call it hair, fur, I used the lighter 3 of the French gray pencils, and I did the same thing. I started with the darkest one on the edge, and I pulled that darkest of the lightest, that's kind of weird, into the shadows. And you'll notice right there on his neck and his chin, I really did pull that line, that shadow in, because he's not an egg. He does have shadow between his head and his belly or his chest. But anyway, if you want to see some really fantastic colored pencil coloring, check out Sandy Allnock. She is, well, okay, let's be real. She's amazing in all of the mediums. But a lot of what I have learned about colored pencils, I did learn watching her color and draw in colored pencil. And I hope that one day when I grow up, I am as awesome as she is with my Prismacolor pencils, because holy cow, she's fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to take my teeniest, tiniest pencil and give him a little bit of magenta on his cheeks or her cheeks, whatever, and blend that back out with the gray and the blender pencil, just because, you know, everybody needs a rosy cheek. Okay, on to Copic markers. I am using my W grays. I'm using W9, W7, W5 for the black, and W3, W1 and W00 for the light. And the first thing I have done is taken all of the parts of him that will be colored black and put down a layer of that double W00. The trick with Copic markers is saturation. You need to have the paper good and saturated in order for the ink to blend nicely. So I have two methods of coloring. One is lightest to darkest and back if I'm coloring a medium-sized, to large-sized image. But right here, I am coloring little tiny pieces of this bear. So I am laying down that super light color, and then I'm going darkest to lightest. I don't want to oversaturate because I don't want it to bleed. So I am starting with the W9, and I am coloring the shadows with the W9. And then I will take the W7 and pull out that dark W9, and then I will blend together the 7 and the 9 with the W5, just to add, and that W5 then becomes the highlight. Even though it's not a light color, it becomes the highlight. For the hands and the feet, I'm kind of emphasizing the fingers or whatever, the paw marks there with the W9, and then pulling that out with the W7 and the W5. I did go back over that a couple of times. It is a small area. It's hard to get really good definition there. And the other problem here is that that paw is right over that foot. So the paw's bent, so the shadows would be down at the ends where it's touching the foot, but then there would also be a shadow there on the foot. So a couple things you could do, you could take the colorless blender and add a little bit of highlight to the paw just to emphasize that paw, or you could take a white gel pen and draw in a little bit of white to emphasize the paw, the difference between the paw and the foot there. Sorry. Anyways, Copic markers. They are my easiest, fastest coloring medium because they blend so easily compared to Zigs or watercolors or colored pencils. You don't have to wait for it to dry. In fact, you don't want it to dry. You're not trying to push the pigment into the fibers. Everything I learned about Copic markers, I learned from watching Kristian Werner and Sandy Allnock and a few other YouTubers. And I took, Kristian Werner had a class some years ago with Jennifer McGuire, Copics for card makers in their online classes platform. And that was really a good introduction to me for Copic markers. So, you know, if you're trying to figure out how to do something these days, there's so many platforms we can use. We can use YouTube and Instagram and Pinterest and online classes. And there's just so many. I'm a visual learner, so watching somebody else do it is like my jam. That's how I get things done. I hope one day that I will be as awesome as some of my YouTube idols. Anyways, so there we go. 3 little panda bears, all colored in black and white with 3 different mediums. Let me know what you think. other than that weird panda bear and his stubby arm that I didn't color correctly. How did it go? Did you learn something new? Did you like what you saw? Thanks for stopping by, and come back again soon. Bye.